Now that the main reason she had wanted to speak with the crew leaders was finished, she asked about the prisoners they had managed to capture.
Are you sure you wish to speak of this now? You were severely injured and should rest.
Vebi replied.
I've showered and eaten. I may get tired faster for a few days, but I'll be fine enough. You have excellent medical staff.
Why do you think they will speak to you? They rarely speak to any of the Federation who capture them.
Fennis asked.
So what are your interrogation methods?
Methods? You asked this before. I don't understand.
Fennis replied.
Well, I guess this is going to be another uncomfortable conversation. Humans have rules on how information can be forced from a prisoner. It used to be that you could enact any method to receive information. We eventually found that most of those methods were ineffective because a person would say anything in order to get the pain to stop. However, I think the threat of pain would probably work well, considering they aren't expecting that from you, but they would expect the real pain from a human. It's up to you. But I'm willing to lean on my species' possible preconceived reputation. I won't actually do any harm.
I can't think of any rule against this. I'm willing to try it.
Fennis said to Vebi.
I'm not sure how I feel about this. Are you certain you are well enough to do this?
Vebi asked.
I should be okay. We'll just move slowly.
Mira replied. They eventually agreed and walked with her to her quarters so she could change, and then took her to the holding cells. On the way to the holding cells, Mira had them take a small detour to her ship to pick up a few items. By the time they made it to the holding cells, Mira was pale and a little sweaty.
You look unwell,
Fennis remarked.
I'm just tired. I'll be okay. Just give me a few minutes to recoup.
Mira squatted down, closed her eyes, and took slow, deep, measured breaths. Vebi was surprised to see the changes in Mira after just a few minutes of rest. Mira used a sleeve to pat her hairline to remove the sweat, and then picked up the items she had set on the floor near her as she stood up. There were obvious signs that she was tired if you had spent much time with her, but someone who didn't know her wouldn't notice. Fennis watched as if a mask settled over Mira's face and all traces of exhaustion left her.
Okay, let's go.
Mira said as she faced the doorway to the holding cells. The cells were set along both sides of a hall. Each cell had a solid door and what looked like a one-way glass so that they could look into the cells, but the prisoner couldn't see out. In each cell was a place to sleep, a place to relieve yourself, and little else.
Is there a place you take them to interrogate them?
No. There is a table and chair that will flip out for them to eat. We usually would just restrain them to that if we needed to be in with them.
Vebi replied. Mira looked at the available prisoners. Most were pretty smug-looking. There were only Imperia and Vasili in these cells, so the Lakshi were either in a different part of the hold or none were captured. One of the Vasili was acting differently from the rest.
Does he look a little nervous to you?
Mira asked Vebi and Fennis.
That one is a little younger than the rest of the captured. Not by much, but it means he may not have seen as much combat.
Then that's the one I want to talk to. I want his hands secured to the top of the table if you can, with space between them if you can, like this.
She put her hands out in front of her as if they were on a flat surface.
It will be done,
Fennis replied before making requests into his portable.
What exactly are you planning?
Vebi asked.
I promise I won't harm him. I wouldn't want you to get into any trouble, but I'm going to lie to him and make it really convincing that I will hurt him and enjoy hurting him. I need you both to agree to anything I say. Make it look like you'll let me do anything I want, and maybe even partake yourselves. We're going to scare him so bad that he will tell you anything you want just to keep me away from him. That means I need you to remember that everything I say in there is going to be a lie. Except if the Geneva Convention gets brought up, that is real and we can talk about that later. You know me well enough to know I'm not a monster, but I'm going to do my best to make him believe I am.
Vebi put a tentacle on her shoulder.
Have no worries, Mira. We will not think differently of you for your intimidation act.
Mira patted his tentacle.
Thank you for understanding.
A short time later, Fennis returned with a few officers. They went in first, secured the prisoner, and then the officers left to stand back outside of the room. Vebi entered first, and Mira followed. Mira stood in front of Vebi and Fennis with her arms behind her back and an impassive look on her face. Fennis made a very human move of moving off to the side of the room to lean against the wall with his arms crossed in front of him. Mira realized he was moving to be able to see her own face, in profile at least, and to also add a little intimidation by being in the lizardman's peripheral vision. Vebi stayed near the door with a pair of his tentacles crossed in a bored fashion.
Ask what you want, weaklings. I know I don't have to speak to you.
He spat. Mira gave a predatory grin.
I like it when they act all big and tough. It's far more satisfying when they begin to beg me for mercy. Listen here, you piece of shit. The Federation isn't in charge here. The humans are. You are on a ship that is on loan to the humans by the Federation. Have you heard of my people before?
The Vasili's countenance changed. He was nervous now.
The Federation would never allow you to do whatever vile things a human is capable of.
Oh, good. You have heard of us. Here's the thing, Sunshine. We didn't take a head count of who we captured. We didn't take names. And even if someone did, it's really easy to remove your name from the list and change the numbers. I can have your image scrubbed from every camera on this ship. You were never here if I say so. This ship has many extremely useful incinerators. Once I'm done with you, we can incinerate your corpse and sprinkle your ashes across the vastness of space.
Her grin grew feral.
So, let's talk rules, shall we? Admiral Vebi or Lieutenant Commander Fennis will ask you questions. Each time you don't answer a question, I'm going to break one of your fingers with this.
She withdrew the hammer from behind her back.
When I run out of fingers, I'll move on to toes. And when I run out of both of these things, we'll move on to teeth.
She withdrew her other hand holding a pair of pliers from behind her back.
But let's be real honest. If you don't talk after I smash your first finger, you aren't going to talk at all, or anything you say will be anything just to get me to stop. Humans figured out a long time ago that the first blush of pain is a great motivator to speak, but anything else is just the torturer having fun. Should we just cut to the chase?
Mira quickly lifted the hammer and slammed it down on the table near one of the lizard man's hands, leaving a huge indent on the table. The Vasili lost control of its bladder.
Get that crazy human away from me. Please, I'll tell you anything you want to know, just get it out.
Mira chuckled.
I see that's a universal response.
She turned to Vebi.
You know the questions I'm interested in.
Of course.
Vebi opened the door to let her out. She exited, and the door closed behind her. One of the officers gestured to a chair he had placed in front of the viewing window.
The Lieutenant Commander asked me to grab a chair for you for after you put on the show. He said you are still recovering, but that hit was impressive. How are you able to do this while so ill?
Mira happily sat down and took a deep sigh of relief.
Humans can kind of gather our strength for a purpose if we need to, but after that we're pretty done. My arm is going to kill me tomorrow morning.
We don't have that ability. When our energy is gone, it's gone. My name is Darkiar, and this is Garsha. We're both officers.
It's nice to meet you both.
I've never seen an interrogation like that,
Garsha said.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure we don't interrogate like that. At least not anymore.
We all have things our species don't do anymore.
Darkiar replied with a shrug. It wasn't long before Vebi and Fennis exited the room and nodded to the two officers to go in and release the prisoner.
You're terrifying,
Fennis said with a smirk.
And exhausted.
Vebi added.
Here, let me see your belt.
He tapped a few buttons, and Mira felt lighter.
The lighter gravity should help you. Let us know if you need help, and I can lower your gravity completely and tow you.
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content, and now you can also show your support by hitting the thanks button at the bottom of the video. Your generosity goes a long way. Additionally, if you're feeling extra generous, check out our Ko-Fi page to support the channel. Every bit helps us bring you more stories from the stars. Thanks a bunch.